Millionaire car salesman, the closest thing to having the blind phone master himself respond to your prospects. And it might be a little bit better than me because a little faster than me. And you hear Sean and I talk all the time about how a fast response time is one of the number one determinant factors when it comes to success with internet prospects. So if you want to respond to folks in 15 seconds or less, so you can have the greatest shot at booking that test drive, selling that car, then you might want to get Podium's AI BDC on your team. And the best part is it works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it talks similar to me. So if you want to get the AI version of me transforming potential interest into sales, then go to podium.com/MCS or just click the link that's in the show notes. We can get this thing rocking and rolling for you. Here we go. I just came to remind you, we got a rock star style. Them orange tie guys gonna show you how to master your craft. Let's go. Yeah. Like to raise your grosses, multiply your leads. Talk to Miss Tiana, you know she got the keys. Came to get some knowledge, build your bank accounts. Talk to L.A. Williams for building large amounts. Oh, we're gonna show you how to make that money. What's happening, everyone? This is L.A. Williams, Vice President with Dealer Synergy and the creator of the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast. And man, I am pumped up, fired up, super excited today because I have on the podcast with me the one and only Miss Tiana Mick, a.k.a. T. Got Your Keys. What's up, T?
Hey, millionaires. Hey, LA. So happy to be on. We just ended Pride Month, right?
Yes,
Hashtag
indeed.
Happy Pride. So super glad to be here. It is July. Half the year is already gone, so I'm super excited to talk.
100%, man. Listen, we got 6 more months to lock in some of these goals and these plans that we already had in place. I think, we already got to say, hey, listen, if we're not 3/4 of the way towards our goals, that we got to start running. We got to start running right now. As a matter of fact, the real way I want us to start looking at this is, let's say, you know what? Listen, I need to be working on my New Year's resolution like right now. Like I need to make July, whatever day you listen to this, right? The New Year's, right? Because that's when most people get all excited. You go to the gym and everybody's all, the gyms are filled out. Everybody's all excited the first 2-3 months, and then it's sudden it dies down, right? Well, if you get started right now, you will literally have a 6-month head start on the competition. So I highly recommend.
LA, you know what I read someday, or somewhere I read this, right? And I was like, you know what? Every day I think about this now.
What is it?
It's summer bodies are built in the winter.
Ooh,
and that is so true, right? Because once you guys start seeing it's 4th of July, you got the cookout, you're like, oh my God, now I got to start working out, now I have to go to the gym. But if you knew, right? It's too late, right? You should have started 6 months ago. So if you knew, that summer bodies are built in the winter, then you would have been like, I can't be slacking. It's the winter time because I know I'm going to have all those, successes when it comes. So
absolutely.
I love that.
I like that too. That means New Year's resolutions are built in the summer then. That's basically what it means.
Exactly.
So I love it. All right, cool. So what we going to get into today, because I know we've had some interesting conversation we planned for the folks, the Millionaire Car Salesman listeners.
Yeah, I'm actually excited because we have a couple of questions from you guys.
Yeah.
And we kind of funneled them under one category because we figured out there's one word that kind of encapsulates all of your guys' questions. And I think LA knows the word that I'm talking about. So I'm going to let him tee it up. But we have all of your amazing questions from the Millionaire Car Salesman group. So if you are listening to the podcast, we do have a Facebook group. Go to the Millionaire Car Salesman private Facebook group. You do have to be a frontline car salesman, dealer, employee of a dealership, but we'll let you in. But all these questions are coming from there. And LA, do you know that secret word that I was talking about?
I don't know, because I've seen a lot of questions in there. People talking about videos. I have to hear people talk about management, being successful. I don't know which one of the words we talk about.
This word, I love that you said management because it actually starts with an A. But many people will actually see this word as more of starting with an M. but it does start with an A, and a lot of people are afraid of it.
Ooh, I think I know what you're talking about.
What are you talking about?
Actually, it's crazy because we were talking about it right now when we talked about the summer bodies and the winter. You know what I mean? Look, it's holding ourselves accountable.
Yes.
Ooh, man, I'm telling you, what I say, winners love accountability, right? Losers hate it, right? Literally. Losers hate accountability, man. That's what I'm saying. And so if you're the kind of, I don't know what happens at your dealership, right? But if you don't hold folks accountable, then you're appeasing all the losers and you're pushing away all the winners, right? But when you hold folks accountable, man, you're attracting winners, right? And then you're annoying all the losers, so hopefully they leave anyway, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Phenomenal stuff. Yeah, so let's have a conversation about accountability. I like talking about accountability. Let's do it.
So the first question, which kind of tees us up, is, in your opinion, where is the fine line between being a hands-on manager and a micromanager? How can a manager tell if, a line is being crossed? So, and what exactly we're talking about, right? What's the difference between being, a micromanager and just holding your team accountable?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's talk about this because, as I said, winners love accountability, but I believe that they hate micromanagement, right? See, micromanagement is, to me, right, and this is our podcast, T, so we can say we want to say, right? So to me, micromanagement is when it's like, hey, every little thing, you got to check it. Oh, I got to check in with every little small piece of the puzzle, right? Like, oh my gosh, like I'm just going to go ahead and get the job done. And so if you got to keep checking on me every 15 minutes to see if I did something that you knew was going to take 4 hours in the first place, well, then that's micromanaging, right? As a matter of fact, I think holding folks accountable is the exact opposite. Listen, you said you were going to get this thing done, and I'm not saying that it can't be a check-in in the middle, right? That, to me, that makes logical sense. If you got a 4-hour project, I'm going to check in with you in the middle. Hey, what's going on? How's everything going? Is there anything I can help you with? All of that good stuff, right? However, if it doesn't get done, or even if it does get done, right, we're going to have a conversation about it at the end of it, and I'm going to say, okay, hey, how did it go? Hey, you said you were going to talk to that customer. How did that conversation go, right? I'm not going to say, did you talk to such and such customer? I'm going to say, hey, Tiana, so when you spoke to Sean, what did he say about such and such? Right? Because now, if you did it, you'll be like, oh, he said such and such and such and such, right? If you didn't do it, you got to say, ooh, yeah, I ain't make that phone call. And you got to hold yourself what? Accountable. So that's the key, right? But I'm not going to be like, hey, did you call Sean? Did you call Sean? Did you call Sean? Hey, did you dial the first number? Did you dial the second number? That's not how we're gonna do this thing. I don't think that a winner would be attracted to that sort of activity. To me, that's the whole
thing.
I
completely agree, and I think it kind of leads us into our next one of how does the culture of a dealership change when a leader shifts from a micromanaging standpoint and approach to fostering more of an accountability aspect. And that was a question, and I kind of love it because that's exactly my answer for accountability versus micromanaging, right? Is just your whole perspective and your kind of your dealership culture, right? So if you're used to a manager just always, like LA said, like, what did you call this customer? Where's your 50 calls? Where's this? Versus just kind of doing those little check-ins, then you kind of have a negative connotation on the word accountability, even managing. You just have, you hear manager and you're like, oh God, here we go, right? When I hear manager, I think okay, this person is, should be being able to call the shots, get things done. But I think the biggest thing is making sure that we have a better culture in the dealership when it comes to accountability. We can't be afraid of it. We can't be thinking oh man, my manager's walking by. I mean, we have to have a positive mindset, oh hey, my manager's walking by, maybe I can check in with this. Oh, let me ask him about that, right? As soon as you switch that kind of mindset in your mind of oh, my manager versus oh, my manager, I think that whole accountability aspect completely shifts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it comes from, boss management versus leadership management, right? Because if you're a boss, you tell people what to do. You're like, oh, you do this, you do, you know, they say a boss says go, a leader says let's go, right? And that's totally true. I mean, for us, you know, for me, y'all know I'm always willing to get my hands dirty. It is what it is. Hey, plug and tuck. Sometimes I feel like y'all like tag me in a little too much, right? But no, I mean, seriously, I'm always willing to do whatever it takes to assist my team. Now, here's the thing. Understand sometimes assisting the team is telling them, no, hey, you know what? You can take care of that. You can handle that, right? Because I have to sometimes motivate people to do things that are a little bit further outside their comfort zone, something that they weren't, you know, naturally willing to just kind of walk into on their own. I got to kind of sometimes go, hey, you know what? You can do this. You got this. Go ahead. I'm right here. Go ahead. Make the phone call. I got you. I'm sitting right here. Ain't nothing bad going to happen while I'm sitting right here, right? So those type of things happen, and it happens all across corporate America. But I'm telling you, in management, you like in a dealership, it's got to be a cross type of situation. Too many managers are like, you know, let's just say like for the internet department, just get them in, right? Okay, well, how am I supposed to get them in? Hey, got anything I could say? Any word trash you want to give me? Hey, can I listen to you make a phone call so I can hear what it sounds like, just quote unquote getting them in, right? I'm telling you, that's the definition to me of a real leader, somebody who's going to step up and actually assist your people. Now, like I said, anyone who knows anything about leadership is familiar with John Maxwell. So if you don't know John Maxwell, get to know him real fast, right? Because he wrote a number of books about leadership, but one of them, he talks about the 5 levels of leadership, right? So you want to make sure that you are not just a positional leader, right? You got to be more of an organizational leader. You want to be that level 3, 4, 5 leader to your people, because being just the positional leader, it's not enough. Folks, in case they wasn't wondering, you know what I'm saying? I gotta let them know.
I agree. And another fact on that is just, or I would like to say a short story, I guess, is kind of what switched my mindset is literally when I first started at the dealership, and every time I saw a customer pull in, we closed at 9 o'clock, right? That might be a little late for you guys, but we closed at 9 o'clock, and every time a car would pull in at 8:58, 8:59, even like 8:40, right? Everybody's like, pew! They don't want to look at the door. They're in the bathroom. They're, you know, checking their last emails. They're trying to make them last phone calls, but not really. They're just playing Candy Crush on their phone. And my mindset was, oh, okay, if that's what everybody's doing, right? My whole shift was, oh man, well, I guess let me not get that customer, let me not stay late, because I even had a manager that would complain like, oh, well, I don't want to stay late, come on, guys. And what kind of switched my mindset was my one coworker who then was promoted to manager. He was like, man, T, you know, when I was started off as you, I would always grab those extra cars that people don't want to stay late, because that would get me an extra 5 to 6 cars every single month. And everybody's like, how are you leading the board? And as soon as I kind of had that like mindset and that shift, I all of a sudden now every time I saw a car come in and I see the headlights and it's about to close, I'm like, I'm the first one out there, right? Because at the end of the day, that's just a mindset game, right? If you all shifted your mindset of, hey, those are an extra couple deals I can grab at the end of the day, imagine how many deals you could get.
Absolutely. See, in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Dr. Covey calls it a paradigm shift, right? So again, when you see those late night headlights, right, what do you think? Do you automatically think negative, or do you think positive? See, it sounds like what you figured out, Tiana, is that, you know, there's not a whole lot of traffic on the extra mile. Right? It's like, I'm just going to go the extra mile. I'm just going to do the additional. I'm just going to go above and beyond. And at the end of the month, when I have more money in my paycheck, right? When my account looking a little bit nicer, other folks not going to be able to figure out why. Why? Because they stopped at the finish line, right? They stop. Most of the time, like you said, they stop before the finish line, right? They don't even go to the end of the finish line. But you go beyond the finish line, and you do it with excitement. You do it with enthusiasm, right? And I think that is that's the big deal. I talk to people around me all the time. I'm like, because, you know, I'll ask somebody to do something, and when they do it almost begrudgingly, it's almost like, you feel like you don't want them to do it, but sometimes I just let people go ahead and do it anyway, right? Because I'm like, I ain't got nothing to do with that. Your attitude is on you, right? However, it is so much more nicer, right, when you can do it with a pleasant, a cheerful, and as dare I say, enthusiastic, desirable attitude, right, man? Don't nobody want to be around a dull, disillusioned, daggum crybaby whining all the daggum time, man. What we want to do is we want somebody that's going like, hey, listen, look, I know it might be above the norm, but hey, listen, this is what it takes in order for us to win. It is what it takes for us to reach that next level, man. Let's go about it and be excited about it, because we're gonna be excited when we get the results. You see what I'm saying? When the results come, everybody's gonna be like, oh, this is great, right? So why not be excited in the beginning? It only makes sense. And
like you said, LA, like keep running past that finish line. When I was in high school, and I was running for a mile, right? My gym coach was like, Tiana, I noticed that once you get to the last lap, it's like you kind of slow down. And I'm like, well, I see the finish line. I know I'm gonna make it. I see it. It's there. I don't know. I feel like I'm trying as much. And he's like, all right, you know what? This time, when you do the mile, run past the finish line. You got another lap to go. And I was like, another one? He was like, just run past the finish line. You got another lap to go. I was like, okay. That was my best mile that I ran, because in my head I didn't have to slow down to the finish line. And I think that's what you guys do sometimes. And even myself, when I was selling cars, it's the 20th of the month and then it's the 25th, and you're like, well, that 30th, that 31st is coming, that finish line is coming up. I don't gotta run as fast, right? But there's people out there, like you said, LA, catching them extra night headlights and all these extra cars, and they're running past the finish line. So what are these little things that you can do in your dealership to run past the finish line, whether that be staying an extra hour and catching those late night customers, or whether it be coming in early, right, and seeing what service appointments are coming in? What's that extra thing that can push you over to that finish line?
And let's talk about, real quick, I'm gonna give a quick story about the actual finish line, right, because it's crazy. So here at Dealerships, we always talk about make 120 calls in a day, right? And I was at a dealership in California, and we were wrapping up, and I was about to head to the airport, and I asked a young lady, I said, how many calls did you make? She's like, oh, LA, I made 118. You made what? Wait, if you don't turn that computer on and sit back down and make 2 more phone calls, right? And she was like, just do it, right? So she did it. Okay, fine. So what happened was, the first phone call, I said, here, I'll make them for you, right? So I made the first phone call. It was just simple, regular voicemail, right? The next phone call, it was the 120th call. It was like a callback type of situation. But as I was hanging up that call, a lead came in. So we called the lady on the 121st call. The lady answers the phone. She's in Arizona. We put together a deal where basically she came from Arizona all the way to San Diego, California to come get this car, because they didn't have the one that she wanted in Arizona. I think all of them were like gray and she wanted a black one or something like that. It was crazy, right? So literally, just because we went the extra mile, made that 121st call, matter of fact, they bought 2 cars, because I remember it being a 2-car deal. It was crazy. Ooh. Right? So that's the kind of stuff that happens. But what I think is, you got to train your mind to do that, because I always say, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so whenever I do a quote unquote 30-minute workout, you can check my rings on my watch. It never says I stop at 30 minutes. I'm always going 33, 35, 37 minutes, right? On my quote unquote 30-minute workout, because I got to train myself that what's expected is now the minimum, right? To me, that's like, okay, that's the expectation, but that's the minimum. I always go above and beyond, right? That's who I am. That's what I do. And so that's the reason why you're not going to see I never get to the 30 and go, all right, I'm done. Nope. Got a little more to go. How much further can you push? How many more laps, as you just said, can you run? How many more laps can you swim? How many more cars can you get sold? How many more customers can you see? Right. It's all about success.
You didn't show up for no 28-minute, 17-second workout, right? It was 30 minutes. And then you put in the extra. And another question from the Millionaire Car Salesman group, which I think is super valuable for all of us to know the answer to, because even in my personal life, I kind of go through this and I'm like, well, even like with my friends, I'm like, how can I properly have this conversation? So the question is, how can leaders create a positive environment for feedback to promote accountability without making members feel scrutinized?
Wow, that's a great question. So this is, to me, this is one of those things. There's a couple of key things that has to do with, right? You got to be able to communicate with your people. People have to feel safe in the environment of accountability. They got to feel safe, right? Because if people don't feel safe, they're not going to feel comfortable sharing. They're not going to feel comfortable being wrong. They're not going to feel comfortable any of that stuff. And so it cannot be a situation where you're like just reaming people out for, a certain, whatever thing,
Wait,
right?
LA, it's not good if my manager storms over to my desk and is like, what's going on with this customer?
It's called emotional intelligence, right? And so here's what I say. Winners, well, let's talk about losers, right? Losers allow their emotions to control them, right? And so when you get mad, everybody knows you're mad, right? Yeah, you're not going to win like that, because winners, they choose which emotion to use to get the desired result. So if there's a result I'm looking for, I'm going to use the emotion that I'm going to pick it. I'm going to choose it. Okay, you know what? The last time I was a little bit more calm and relaxed with the customer. Last time I was a little bit more playful with the team. I'm going to have to give it to them a little. I'm going to have to give them a little umph this time, because I think they thinking it's a little sweet, right? Or, right, I know I've been kind of getting on folks a little bit. How about we do it a little bit more playful this time, right? So I'm going to choose which emotion to use to get the desired result, whatever it is that I'm looking for. So and then the other thing is, all of my teammates, everyone's different, right? And so I have to coach, let's say, just different people on the team, right? I can name all y'all, right? Y'all know we love each other. So I got to coach V a little bit different than I got to coach Naima, who I got to coach Malik, then I got to coach Frank, and I got to that's just how it works, right? I just have to coach people differently, because some people can take certain stuff and some people can't. And it doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make them weak or anything like that just because they can't handle you yelling, right? What it does is it makes the manager weak, who can't not yell when it's time to not yell. That's all. That's the only, you a one trick pony, bro. Like, seriously, that's all you got in your bag is the yell. Like, where's the tact? Right? Where's the question asking skills? Where's the psychology? Like, where's the development on the part of the manager, right, on the part of the leader that says, hey, you know what? I'm going to do something a little bit different. And the crazy thing, and I'm going to talk about this because I say this a lot of times. Sean Bradley is actually like that, right? A lot of people wouldn't think that he is, right? Because he's, he's a little high head and all that kind of good stuff, right? But it's amazing to watch him. Sometimes I'll see him. He'll go, you know what, I'm going to watch how I handle this, LA. And then he'll do it completely different than what people might think he would do. And he gets a great result because he knows how to, right, think about it and go, wait a minute, how do I want to approach this situation, right? I've seen him do it with plenty of employees across the years. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. And on a sales standpoint, right? I mean, that's what we have to do as salespeople.
Customers, yeah.
Exactly, with customers. I always say, I was like, I don't want to sound manipulative, but I definitely, I'm a chameleon to my customer. And so if I see somebody coming in and they're more maybe in their suit, they're a little, buttoned up, then I'm not going to go out and be like, hey, what's up, going on? But if I do see somebody that maybe they're blaring their music, right? I hear something that I like, I'm like, oh, snap, what's going on? You have to learn how to placate to your customer and meet them where they're at. You never want to, go and talk crazy to a customer with all this high energy if they're more kind of reserved and laid back. And same thing with your employees. If you realize that, okay, hey, yelling at this so-and-so employee might not get me the result that I want, but the majority kind of does listen to maybe my yelling. Exactly what LA said, you're kind of that, one-trick pony, where as a manager you need to learn how to manage your different people, different relationships. So just because, as talking to managers here, just because maybe one thing is working, right, even being like that playful manager, being everybody's friend, I'm kind of like that too, right? I can be your friend, but when things got to get done, you got to know how to bring it back.
Exactly, 100%. Again, you have to have a range of emotion, right? And that's the whole thing. You got to have a range of styles of leadership. You have to have that's literally what it's called. It's called having range, right? As a music producer, right? If you only could sing one octave, I mean, I don't know what I'm gonna do with you, right? But if you could sing 4-5 octaves, now you got some range, right? And we could really make some real music. It's the same deal from an emotional standpoint. So you on fire with these questions, T. I'm loving these joints. What we're going to talk about.
Let's get another one.
Well, before we do, let's hear from a few of our clients.
This has been the most in-depth training I've had in my lot of years in the car business.
We went from 60 cars to 156 cars a month in 3 months.
NAMAD, the entire Toyota Chicago region, as well as the top automotive groups like Koons, Lithia, and Norm Reeves have all used Bradley On Demand to train their team.
They're the most comprehensive training company I've seen, and they by far have the best support system.
Doing 50 cars a month, topped out at 80. I can tell you that the Bradley On Demand training will get you to the next level.
And guess what? The world's #1 car salesman, Cody Carter, shares his exclusive strategies right here. You want his secrets? You gotta have Bradley On Demand.
What I learned from Bradley On Demand is you can teach an old dog new tricks. I thought I knew it all.
I thought it was just going to be the same old stuff. It's all new. It's all fresh. It's genuine material.
Bradley On Demand is just an incredible power tool. Every dealer should take advantage of that.
Our clients love Bradley On Demand. We've generated over $12 billion of additional revenue for our clients.
Went from selling 75 internet leads to we've hit almost 250 the last couple months.
I doubled my income. I sold 21 cars for 4 months straight.
If you're still not enrolled in Bradley On Demand, you're missing out on the best virtual automotive training in the world. Enroll now or contact us for a free test drive of the platform today.
How important is emotion intelligence in deciding between micromanaging and effective accountability? Wow. And can you give like an example of when that was in real, like, so it said in the dealership, but and I know you've been in the dealership, LA, any real examples of how emotional intelligence is basically important? I mean, I know we were just talking about it, but
yeah, I think that let's talk about. I mean, for me, so again, I deal with the internet team a lot, but even with salespeople, right? A big part of what we do is making phone calls, and so what I do if I notice that, hey, you know what, we're maybe having a little bit too much conversation, right? There are times where I can just like get really quiet. Like, and I'm not joining in the conversation, and I can start picking up the phone and start dialing, and people will actually go, they'll start to get uncomfortable, right? That's kind of what you're attempting to do, is to make some person feel uncomfortable because they see you making phone calls and they over there yapping their mouth. You see what I'm saying? So that's one way to do it. Sometimes I'll just ask the question, hey, who can we call, y'all? Like, literally, who can we call, right? I can just ask the question, right? And sometimes I'll be like, all right, y'all, it's phone call time. Let's go. Like, I'll just interrupt the conversation with something crazy like the phone call time, right? There's times where I might have to say, hey, guys, listen, Tiana, how many calls you had?
50.
Okay, well, I don't know if you know, but Naima's at 65 calls right now, and such, right? So I might got to do some challenging things right there. Like, I got to do all kind of, there's different things, there's different ways that you can do it. But again, you have to decide ahead of time how you're going to approach it, right? So that's one thing in particular that I can give you when you talk about having emotional intelligence and how I'm going to hold somebody accountable, right? If someone shows that they need micromanagement, right, then I will absolutely do that, right? Because I'm noticing, hey, you know what, and I might have to pull a person aside. I might gotta have to go, when we spoke at 11, you had 23 calls, and now it's 1, and you're only at 33. What's going on here? Like, yeah, I understand that you took lunch. So it's still another hour, right? Only 10 calls. Well, this happened. Okay, let me ask you a quick question. If you were in my shoes, or even if you were in your shoes, when you hear yourself say that, how do you consider it? That do you look at that as an excuse, or is that like something that like does that help you actually win? Like you break that down to me, right? And I'll just ask people questions. I ask people sometimes really unique questions like that, right? So yeah, I mean, I think it's important. Now, to me, asking questions is the key. That's always been my style, whether it comes to sales or management, leadership, and all that kind of stuff. I'm a question asker. I'm going to ask you, okay, so how does it feel? Or here's a good question too. I got this one from Jonathan Dawson, my man. He said, so when you did that thing, how did you want me to feel when you did that, right? So when you made 10 calls, how did you want me to, how did you expect me to be as your leader? How did you want me to address that, right? Because then they like, oh shoot, what in the world, right? I gotta basically hold myself accountable. Yep, absolutely. So. I
love flipping that too, because you taught me that, LA. It's just always, somebody asks you a question, answer it with a question. And I always do that to my nieces. They're like, I cleaned the room. And then I walk in and I'm like, does this look clean to you? Then they kind of look around and they're like, 5 more minutes. And I'm like, okay. Right? So exactly, as managers, you could be like, well, does the CRM look clean to you?
Yeah,
and you're like,
absolutely.
Actually.
Yeah.
So another one, which I think is interesting, is how do team dynamics change when accountability becomes the norm? And I think we, LA, personally can speak on this because here at Dealer Synergy, we start bright and early at 8:30 a.m., right? We ain't no 9 to 5, we 8:30.
Yeah, let's go.
And our norm is to, be at your desk and show up, before 8:30, right? We know you start work at 8:30, but we know you got to get your coffee, settle in, and it kind of became the norm to have that accountability of, okay, let's just show up a little bit early so that way we can really start supporting our dealers at 8:30. And I mean, it's been 20 years and it's been amazing, but I think what kind of shifted that for us is sometimes when we have new hires and they're like, oh, well, 8:30, okay, I'll show up at 8:30. I'm like, no. Like, it says 8:30, but, the show up a little bit before that so that way you can kind of get ready. And then once they kind of got that in their head, they were like, man, now I'm showing up to school 5 minutes early. Now I'm showing up to, my cookout 10 minutes early because, like you said earlier, when the expectation of being on time, when that's the expectation, like how can I be above and beyond that? Okay, 5 minutes early.
Right.
So to you, LA, how do team dynamics change when accountability becomes the norm?
Well, there's a couple of key things that happens. First of all, it eases the burden of leadership, right? And what I mean by that, so what happens is when accountability is the norm, quote unquote, and I call them sidelines. Y'all know I come from network marketing, right? But sidelines, like coworkers don't mind holding people accountable, right? They'll have that conversation with the person, and it won't even be uncomfortable, right? They'll go, hey, listen, so I'm noticing that, the time that you're arriving is becoming a little bit later and later, and again, as a team, that's not the standard, right? Our standard is that we arrive early, right? Because to be early is to be on time. To be on time is to be late, and to be late is to be a lazy and terrible example, right? And so, as you said, we got brand new people here. We got people who just whatever their situation may be, and without any kind of conversation, if there was no communication, then we do expect you to be here early, which is on time, right? So that's one of the number one thing that changes as far as team dynamic is concerned. When accountability is in place and everybody knows they're going to be held accountable, everything becomes a lot simpler. It's real easy around here, right? Because every person will hold every other person accountable, and they won't be shy about it. They won't feel uncomfortable about it, and the person will respect the person who said something to them about it. Like, I've been slipping lately. I don't know, man. I've been staying up later, and then they fix it. Right, and so that's the cool thing about it. And we're talking about being late and on time, but it's with everything, right? Why do you think winning teams? You talk about like the Eagles, you know what I'm saying? Super Bowl team, been to the playoffs all these couple years in a row, right? Well, they operate a little bit differently than, and I'm just gonna say right now, the Carolina Panthers, right? I'm just they was 2-15 or whatever situation. There's a certain level of accountability, and I'm just saying that because I'm friends with the players, so I I can tell you, right, that they told me this kind of stuff happens. They understand the difference, right? There's a particular player that went from the Eagles to the Panthers, and he was like, yeah, it's different, right? It's just different. So yeah, 100%. I think that it makes everything easier on leadership, makes everything easier on everybody, and everybody ultimately wins. Like the rising tide, right, raises all boats, something like that.
Mm-hmm. No, you got it right. And I love what you said about it kind of alleviates the, kind of just some responsibility off of the manager, only because, exactly like in the dealership, managers, if you're listening, and I know you guys are, what's something that, even if it's a simple lot walk or making sure all the cars are, parked in the line right, or like what's one thing that could, even if it saved you like 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, what's something that you can now pass on to your team and it doesn't have to be anything too crazy, but to show that your team is, responsible and can be held accountable without you having to micromanage. So once you start giving them these little things like, okay guys, I want to make sure that all the keys are, in the lockbox and everything's locked up, and just little things, and then we can start on, all right guys, now I want you guys to go into the CRM and see if there's any leads that we need to if you need to reactivate them, then you can kind of go on that scale. But see if there's anything that you can kind of take off your plate, give it to your team, right? And then build that team bonding too. I think that's a big thing of it. It's a huge team bonding as well.
Absolutely. I always say, Tiana, that as a leader, right, your people, you got to get to a place where your people can finish your sentences, right? Literally, like you should be saying things so often that it like literally drills into their head almost like an affirmation, right? It's like they hear you saying it so often, they know that this is something that you stand by, right? So you can't just say it, you got to walk the walk, right? Also, but again, it's one of those things where people can literally finish their sentence. They know what you're going to say before you say it, because that's a culture that you've created, right? You've created a culture where certain things are the case, and so nobody has to. You don't have to hear me say it. You can hear when. And then the other thing I say too is that people don't typically follow the leader; they follow the follower. Right? So what does that mean? It's like, okay, if I say to do something, I look crazy, right? If I'm like, oh, we're going to sing this song in the morning, I look crazy until the first person starts singing along with me, right? Then it's like, oh, okay, cool. Then you get a third person. The third person only tags along because the second person did. Because if they would have, then they would have been the second person. You understand what I'm saying? So they're the third for a reason, right? And now, like you said, 3's a crowd, and then 4 jumps in, and now you start feeling weird because you're not singing the song, right? So now you're going to do it because everybody else is doing it. Now it's like the crowd think becomes to come into play, right? And now everybody's doing exactly what you need them to do. So it just takes a little bit of courage from that first person to not want to leave the leader abandoned, right? You don't want to abandon your leader. You want to be right there with them. So shout out to all my right-hand men and women in the building. You know what I'm saying? You guys are awesome.
I know. And especially when you guys get into that huddle, right? And all the followers are kind of just standing around, and you kind of see that one guy or girl at their desk, and you think like, oh, they're not a part of the party. They're being a leader, actually. They're actually trying to get things done. Yeah. And so kind of leading up to our next question, which I think Dealer Synergy, which, as you know, Millionaire Car Salesman podcast, Facebook group, proudly powered by Dealer Synergy. I think this question kind of fits perfectly kind of with what we do. How can managers use metrics, data, and systems to foster accountability without becoming overbearing?
That is so good. I love that. I love that question, right? And because basically it falls under the category of men lie, women lie, but numbers don't lie, right? Yes. And so when I'm holding folks accountable, it doesn't need to be opinion based, right? It can literally be numbers based. If the standard is for us to do, let's just say 40 training modules, right? Let's say you got Bradley on Demand and you do 40 training modules. Okay, well, I can literally look at the system and go, okay, well, you did 23 modules, right? So you didn't want, let's just make it the number easy, right? So you did 20 20 modules, even though the expectation is 40. So that means that you wanted 50% of your paycheck, right? I mean, that ain't that kind of what it means? Yeah. It's so crazy to me when people say that they forgot to do certain things. Like, okay, well, what if we forget to pay you, right? You would be like, oh, and then you'd be whining and complaining and all that kind of stuff like that, right? So there is no forgot. It's just, these are the numbers. This is the expectation. And again, there's no reason why, because here's the reason why there's no reason why. Because you didn't communicate. It's not like this particular thing happened, because if you would have said something initially, then your manager, your leader, would have helped you find a way to overcome that challenge. You understand what I'm saying? Because listen, I know I don't deal with excuses very well. And you give me an excuse, I'm gonna show you how to overcome it real quick. You see what I'm saying? And so now it's going to be a situation of, do you truly desire to overcome the challenge, or are you just whining? Are you just that cat that's, that dog sitting on the nail, whining, and not trying to get up, right? That's the whole problem. A lot of times people are laying on nails that are, it hurts enough for them to whine about, but not hurt enough for them to get up and do something about. You see what I'm saying? Because if I do that, then nobody's gonna feel sorry for me, and people like people to feel sorry for them. That's never been my thing. Like, never feel sorry for me because I'm blind, or something. Like, no, you ain't got to. Look, I'm blessed. You know what I'm saying? You have no idea, man. Life is great for me because of my situation. Y'all have no idea. So, yeah, I think that those are the things that you got to do when you're using numbers to hold folks accountable. When you just literally put up on the board how many cars somebody got. So when you literally put up, it's at this one dealership, they had it. They call it the crap list, right? Whatever, another word, right? They put that sheet up there, and if you hadn't had a certain number of modules done by a certain period of time, your name was on that list. And it was literally just because of your numbers. You could be a great guy. You could have all the reasons, the excuses in the world. But if your numbers don't match up, then you're going to end up on this crap list.
Yes.
So that's the kind of stuff you got to do. So, and then there's no emotion involved. It's just a sheet. It's just up on the screen. It's just up on the board, right?
You just teed me up, pun included and intended.
Look at that.
You teed me up for, that's why I kind of love, and I'm being a little biased here, but our system is because we, exactly what you have, right? We have a system, and if you want to simply put it as a sheet, we have a sheet, a checklist on all of your team members, accountability, calls, texts, all that good stuff. And why I like it is because exactly what you said, LA, it's so annoying, I'm going to say. When your manager comes over and they're like, where are you at? What's going on? But if you, as a team member, right, took your responsibility, had your sheets and your numbers and your sheet and your system, then your manager just has to log in, go to your name, and see where you're at.
Yep.
And that's kind of why I like setting up systems when it comes to checklists, sheets, because I don't have to check in with anybody, right? I just have to check in with my sheet.
Right.
I don't have to go to Tom and then ask Jessica to ask Brad. That's why we have a CRM, right?
Right.
Our CRM is literally our one-stop shop to find out everything that's going on with our customers. So what is something that you want to have done at your dealership, whether that be even just parking the cars, right? Making that a sheet. You don't got to check in with Jessica and Tom and Brad and Lee and all these people, right? You just have to go to your sheet. And that's kind of why I love our system here at Dealer Synergy, because if you go to the sheet, you kind of know what's going on.
Absolutely. I think y'all might have heard something in the background there, because I think somebody might have started their motorcycle or something like that. So I'll be like, what is that noise? Like, if you heard it, I'm going to check and see if it comes up when I go to put the podcast together. But if it does come through, you know exactly what it was. My man, it's Griffin, right, on the motorcycle? My man Griffin got the motorcycle route. He pulled it out, you know what I'm saying? Nice hot day. Shout out to Griffin. All right, T, so what else we got? I know folks ain't got all day listening.
Yeah, we got one last question.
All right, one last question.
How do you see the future of management evolving in terms of accountability, and are there trends that current leaders should be aware of or should stray away from?
This is so good. I like this question. All right. So let's talk about what folks should stay away from the very beginning. So one of the number one challenges that we face in the automotive industry is the high producing salesperson becoming the manager. Let's just be real about it, right? Because just because you can sell a lot of cars doesn't necessarily make you a great manager. It's just like the number one highest performing player in sports, they're usually not a great coach, right? Because they can't quite understand why this person can't get it, right? Well, I was able to do such and such and such and such. Now you sound like that whiny manager, right? When I was such and such and such, like, shut up. Nobody care about what you was such and such. Show me how to do it when I'm such and such, because now I'm such and such, right? And so that's a big deal. I think we got to make sure that we stay away from that. Make sure that if, like, when do we give ourselves management training, right? To me, as a manager, one of the first things I did, I remember as, getting promoted to, a training, like the training director, right? It was like, okay, well, now if I'm going to have people, then I know I got to be really good with people, right? When I became the vice president of this company, it was like, okay, I know that there are some new things that I need to learn that I don't know yet. Most people, when they get promoted to management, they like, they feel like they've arrived. But really, you're at the bottom, right? People say that everyone is promoted to the level of their incompetence, right? Why? Because if you was really, really great at it, they would have promoted you to the next level, right? So literally, I mean, if you think about it, it's really true, right? If you get promoted to the level of your incompetence, if you're doing well at one thing, you get promoted. If you're doing well at that thing, you get promoted. When you stop doing so well, you stop getting promoted, right? And so you got to look at your promotion. Let every manager know you get promoted to a position. This is the beginning of something special. Now you get the opportunity to grow out of this position. And to me, that is exactly what I would recommend. I kind of talked about, them both at the same time, right? What do you want to stay away from? And then what are some of the different things that you want to do? Because the future of really good management is I'm telling you, it's the emotionally intelligent leaders are going to be the highest paid leaders in the world. Why? Because they know how to deal with all types of people. Aren't you tired of all this daggum turnover? I mean, how many people tired of all this daggum attrition, right? You keep losing people and losing people and losing people and losing people. Eventually it ain't the people, right? It might be that one constant, which that manager is still in place, right? Same old manager, right? Well, hey, how about we need to switch some stuff up, right? We need to get a truly emotional, intelligent leader in there, somebody who wants to win, somebody who knows how to inspire, somebody who knows how to educate, somebody who knows how to motivate, right? Those are three things that you absolutely must be able to do, and you have to do it intelligently, right? And ultimately, need to help your folks make some money. How about that? Like, let's just be real about it. Like, because if folks were making the kind of money that they needed to make, and those other things are in place, it's not just about the money, right? The money's great, but listen, folks have left jobs that paid well because they weren't ever told that they're doing a good job, right? They're not appreciated, right? Those, they're not recognized for their hard work, their efforts, and so people will leave. But when they're being paid well and that stuff is happening, oh man, I'm telling you, got to create raving fans. I think that is the responsibility of a leader of any organization. I think folks should be your fan. I really believe that's how you got to approach it, right? Like, do something for somebody, man. Help somebody in some way, shape, or form in a way that they may not have anticipated. I think if you do that, you're on your way to being a phenomenal leader.
Yes. For me, I have a little hope. Only because with my generation being Gen Z, going back to what you were saying with emotional intelligence, I think we are one of the highest so far, right? Gen Alpha, you aren't old enough yet for me to make that decision. But I think we are the most highly intelligent emotionally, right, as a generation. So when we do become leaders, I think we do, like you said, look at we're not bosses, right? We look at our team members as team members. And I've been at a lot of dealerships where, the manager, they just believe that they are above everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And I don't like that at all. I mean, at my last dealership I was at, I absolutely loved our dealer principal. He was changing the trash bags.
Wow.
Right? He was outside sweeping leaves, you know, to make sure that the customers had a clean showroom to walk in. I mean, when I saw that, he was like, you know, I don't care if you're, you know, a customer, if you're a salesperson, if you're the lot guy, if you're me, the dealer principal, right? We all have to pull our weight. And when I kind of saw him literally on his hands and knees picking up trash as the owner of the dealership, I was like, wow, like that is a leader, right? They're not just gonna command, so hey, go Bobby, go pick up the trash, go sweep up the leaves outside. He was actually out there doing it. And so I have a lot of hope for our future when it comes to that, because I think we realize, you know, we are a team. Nobody is above anybody. And if you get anything out of this podcast, is exactly what it is: accountability and micromanaging. It doesn't mean, oh, hey, I'm above you, or I, you know, for whatever reason, am more valuable than you, so I have to look over what you're doing. Absolutely not. We're a team. There's one thing that we have to get done, right? We have the same common goal, and I'm just trying to help you get there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the bottom line. And if all of you managers are listening out there, Dealer Synergy has an amazing accountability program.
You know it.
And so does Bradley On Demand. So if you guys are interested in that, feel free to reach out to me anytime. You guys have my cell phone number. It is 610-607-3231. That is my real cell phone number. Feel free to text me, call me anytime. It is T, you know me, and I'm passing the mic on to LA.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we're pretty much just going to close it out like this, ladies and gentlemen. I believe that if you want to win on the highest levels, right, you understand that accountability is the ability to give an account. Right? Can you give an account for your actions, or are you hiding from your actions? Like one of the things that like really spurred me as a young leader was, you know, act as if everything you do is going to be on the front page of the newspaper, right? And I know, wait, somebody, no news. It's going to be the pinned post on the that's right. All right. Everything you do is going to be a pinned post. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be at the top. Everybody's going to see it, right? And I think if you do that, man, you ain't got to worry about hiding, man. Listen, this is what I did. This is what I didn't do, right? And so that, when you have the ability to give an account, man, I'm telling you, it makes you special. So listen, I always say you are the average of the 5 people who you spend the most time with. And you've just been spending time with the one and only Miss Tiana Mick, T Got Your Keys, and L.A. Williams, the blind phone master. Well, maybe I'm just a blind master, but either way, it's your turn. Go out there and be a millionaire car salesman. We will talk to y'all later. Peace.
Bye, millionaires.